there really is no other critical metal projects that have gone as far advanced as we have. And shovel ready being fully permitted, pending raising the final project financing, which we'll get into soon. With everybody that's been a supporter of this project for a long time, it's going to mean the world to me to break the ground and just have everybody up there. And it's going to be that aha moment that, hey, we are the next critical metal project getting built in Canada.
Once again developing a plan to keep the U.S. military from acquiring the essential critical minerals it needs, and Canada is beginning to take its mineral industry more seriously. The recent budget introduces a new $2 billion critical minerals sovereign fund for strategic investments. These initiatives aim to increase exploration, processing, and manufacturing of these minerals in Canada. Today, we're diving into an advanced critical minerals project in Canada. But before we begin, it's important to note that Generation Mining has paid Pinnacle Digest for marketing services, including the production and dissemination of this video interview. This is not investment advice. Please read the full disclosure at the end of this video. Joining me today is Jamie Levy, the President and CEO of Generation Mining. It trades on the Toronto Stock Exchange under the symbol GENM. The company has significant exposure to copper, palladium, platinum, gold, and silver. Jamie, welcome to the show. It's been a little while, man. It's great to see you.
It's been way too long. Thank you for having me, and good to see you again.
I think it's been about 5 years. Yeah. So how many years have you been advancing the Marathon Copper Palladium project? It feels like a while.
We acquired the project from Sibanye back in 2019. So what has it been, 6 years now? I used to be a little bit younger, a little bit more hair. I don't know if that's the pandemic or if it's trying to build a project and go through permitting, but we're there, we're shovel ready. It's good it's a good time for this company these days.
Yeah. Talk to me about, critical minerals have become such a buzzword. Everybody's talking about them, the government, everybody. Where do you guys fit in with that narrative?
I think the original, talk was battery metals, and then it quickly pivoted to critical metals. And I think now with what, mentioned China or Russia, Ukraine, it's more of a strategic metal. And I think the world is all realizing how strategic these metals are for each country. So whether we're going to work together or work separately, we're in that sweet spot because we do have copper and we do have the PGMs. So the critical metals that we have are the polymetallic deposit that we have. We're in a very good sweet spot here for critical metals.
You're hoping to mine a number of different metals. Kind of break them down for us. You've got some precious metals, some critical minerals, some base metals. What's the order of importance, would you say?
Well, they're all important because they're all revenue. But I mean, at today's prices, we'd be producing about 50 million pounds of copper for the first 3 years, but we'll call average life of mine just over 40 million pounds and about 165,000 ounces of palladium. So at today's prices, it's about a 50-50 split between copper and palladium. And then obviously, if we bring in the platinum, gold, and silver, that would be about 20%, and the copper, palladium are about 40% each.
So you say shovel ready, you're talking about revenue. Obviously, you don't have a mine yet. You still got to build it. You're a long ways out. What stage are you at? How quickly do you think you could actually move to a production decision?
It's a good question, but let's just back up to shovel ready. I'm not a ChatGPT fan or a Grok fan, but I was on a meeting with someone yesterday, and they said, "How do you know that you're the only shovel ready project?" And I said, "I asked ChatGPT." So if you pull up ChatGPT, say only critical metal shovel ready project in Canada, Marathon's the only one that shows up. In North America, there's two of them. It's us and I guess some niobium in Nebraska, Elk Valley. So those are the only two that ChatGPT, Grok had a few others. So, I mean, that's not now how I know, but there really is no other critical metal projects that have gone as far advanced as we have. And shovel ready being fully permitted, pending raising the final project financing, which we'll get into soon.
What about permits? Like, do you have all your permits in place? Where
we have all of our construction permits. We got our EA in the end of 2022, November of 22. It took us about 3 years to get the final permits. We got them in the spring of 2025 of this year. So there's no other permits we need to start construction.
So at this point, you're literally just in the financing stage.
Correct. So, I mean, if you open your checkbook and gave us the final money, we'd be building it soon.
Tell us how large the project is and what the CapEx is.
It's not large, but it's big. It's In Canada, you were up there at site.
Yeah.
It's very good infrastructure for being in Northern Ontario and Canada. So our capex of $1 billion Canadian, I think is relatively inexpensive compared to what other deposits might have being with poor infrastructure, without the roads, without the power, without the town. Everything we have, everything. So our capital being $1 billion, I think is quite reasonable for being a large open pit in Canada.
Financing a project through to production is no small task. You guys are already, on your way a little bit. You've made some progress there. Tell us about how you plan to achieve that.
Well, we engaged a world-class firm out of London called Endeavour Financial to help us through the project financing. The first step we looked at, which we completed a couple years ago, was a stream with Wheaton Precious, the largest streaming company in the world. I think they could be bigger than Franco today. I'm not too sure, but we ran a process. Wheaton was the best cost of capital, and that was the first source of our project financing was upwards of $240 million Canadian. In that stage. Since that time, we've looked at other avenues. The next was to look for commercial bank debt or private equity debt. We thought the best source would be through Endeavour, again, through their advice, was to go through project financing through commercial banks. We've got term sheets with Societe Generale, ING, and EDC for upwards of $400 million USD. So it's about three-quarters of the way of our capex, and there's other steps we're looking to get fully financed early next year.
Talk to me about Wheaton Precious. How does that 240 million work? Like it's a streaming deal after you go on production, they get paid back. How do they structure that?
So we structured as $240 million Canadian. So far, we've drawn down $40 million in pre-deposits. The other $200 million will come on construction. Once we're in production, we start to give them some of the gold and our platinum and some of our platinum as part of the streaming arrangement. So they're entitled to upwards of 80% of the gold over the first so many years of the mine life, and the same with the platinum, upwards of 20% of the platinum.
When are you hoping to have this potentially wrapped up and the money secured to actually break ground?
Well, at today's prices, I mean, we can get into the economics later. This project is quite robust. We like to do it as soon as we can. With that final permit happening in the spring of 2025, we're ready to go. We're just working with our project financing team at Endeavour and the staff here to try to get this all buttoned up and try to hopefully start construction early next year.
Sure. Let's get into some of the brass tacks and numbers, as it were, right? I saw the initial IRR was, I think, 28%. Has that changed?
We did do fees. We announced it in the spring of 2025. That was our third feasibility study over 3 years. We wanted to make sure we caught a lot of the upswings in the pandemic, and then we wanted to make sure that we're quite confident going into this project financing that we are at a level that will be confident for us and for our lenders. So the $1 billion capex that we put out, we're quite confident on those numbers. We actually think that there could be some opportunities in that as well. But to go back to the numbers, it's just over $1 billion NPV, IR, as you mentioned, at 28%, and a payback just under 2 years. That's using 3-year trailing averages, which is about 1,500 palladium, $4 copper, and 950 platinum. So today's prices, we know copper's pushing $5, palladium's around 1,500, and platinum's well over 1,500. So our numbers would be a lot higher today, probably about 50% higher, well over $1.5 billion.
How sensitive is this project to the moving price of metals?
Well, let's just talk about our two main revenue sources, palladium and copper. Palladium's that we'd be producing about payable metal 165,000 ounces a year on average, a little bit more for the first couple of years, just because smaller starter pit. But at life of mine, $100 move would bring in an additional $16.5 million USD a year of palladium, copper, from $4 to $5. Obviously, it's easy to figure that out. That's about 20% higher or 25% higher, depending on when you want to look at it. But we do 45 million pounds, so that would be an additional, $45 million a year for that move in copper from $4 to $5.
How do you think that mindset's changed? From a few years ago, you talked about going through the valley of death and the permitting process, and there seems to be this awakening in Canada as it relates to our natural resources. Have you seen a shift?
A massive shift. I mean, we can see in the news. I mean, I'm watching Red Bear or Fox News at 6 o'clock, or I'm watching Aaron Burnett on CNN. I like to watch both just to keep the algorithm clean, but watching both. But they're talking about rare earths in Greenland. They're talking about rare earths in Ukraine. Like people don't even know what rare earths are, and they're talking about it on mainstream TV. We're talking about the tariffs, about what China is doing, and Canada, what the support they're giving for these major projects that's happening. It's all over the news right now, and I think people are starting to understand if it can't be grown, it's got to be mined. Or the other way you could look at it, if it doesn't grow, you have to mine it. And Friedland used to have a little saying like, Alice, the ham sandwich doesn't come from the fridge. And I think a lot of people are starting to realize, wow, we need mining.
And tell us again, what are the next tangible steps towards breaking ground? Is it literally just the financing and then you're going to be able to press go?
The money would certainly help. It's going to take a little bit of time once we get all the money, but we're working towards reducing that timing with regard to getting to a higher level of detailed engineering, making sure all the conditions and our permits and our EA are all there. But basically, once we have the money, we're ready to go.
Yeah. Palladium and copper, we've talked about this awakening here. How do you see the fundamental demand story evolving over the next decade, for these metals?
Well, I mean, let's talk about the supply first of both of them, and then we could get to the demand. But I mean, it was just this week. I mean, it was all over my Twitter, my X, and all over the Bay Street News things that the copper market crisis is looming. 2026 is set to be the biggest shortage in 22 years. So I mean, it's all over.
Morgan Stanley,
they're all talking about that, and it's becoming a scarce commodity. I mean, there's been some supply shortage down in Panama, down in Grassenberg. And the supply is certainly falling on the copper story. The palladium story, with the depressed price over the couple of years, obviously there's been no tariffs or sanctions on the Russian palladium, but it's getting more and more expensive for the South Africans to do it. There's a project in Canada, which I believe is might be closing down soon. The Sibanye down in Montana was originally guiding for 600,000, now down to 200,000. So the supply of these projects are all starting to fall. The demand for copper, as we know, I mean, if anybody believes in electrification, from a webinar we did before, I keep hearing we need one tier one project to be built every year just to maintain normal copper demand. And we don't have any tier one projects getting developed right now. So we're in a shortage coming up. And this is not even with the battery, the EV transition. This is as normal copper demand. So the copper story is I believe going to resonate. The interest in copper isn't quite like precious metals, but it's going to pick up, I believe. The demand for palladium is picking up too with the depressed sales of the EVs in China and the rest of the world. The hybrid vehicles, which require more palladium than what a regular internal combustion engine. So the demand for palladium is going to be around a lot longer. So I think we're in a sweet spot of these two commodities, and I love it that we're going to be developing this project.
This liberal government is talking a big game as it relates to critical minerals. They're providing this, $2 billion sovereign fund. Are you guys going to look into any of that? Do you think there may be some synergies there?
We don't need the 2 billion. We just need $1 billion. So no, we'll certainly talk to them on that. But the liberal government has been pretty good over the past couple of years of actually having stuff that's already been passed through legislation, passed through budget. So they've already announced some funding through the Strategic Innovation Fund, through the Canadian Infrastructure Bank, through the Canadian Growth Fund. So we've already looked at previous funding sources, and we're quite confident we're going to get some funding from those. These newer ones are interesting as well. We're going to look at it, but I think we're going to be done by that time. So we're not going to need that money. There's older money that we're going to get.
Jamie, advancing a deposit is one thing. Moving forward, trying to, construct and build a mine is another. Lots of things can go wrong in mining, obviously. Are there anything you see that could potentially, derail the project or delay it?
Well, what we're looking to do is to bring in a good team, hire the best. So far, we've engaged a VP of projects, Clinton Swimmer. We are a big fan of his, and he's looking to build a team together that could reduce the risk on this. With every project, there's going to be risk built into our feasibility study. There will be contingencies built into what the lenders are going to require. There's going to be a cost overrun facility, which is going to be more equity that we have to raise. So some of that risk will hopefully be diminished by that. We do have weather risk, and we're trying to reduce the construction schedule by doing some stuff in the winter that's easier and some stuff in the summer. But the biggest risk to this project is obviously commodity risk, and we hope to maybe be able to hedge that at a certain point in time. But I'm quite confident, and the copper and palladium prices will be going higher. But with all investments, there is risk. But I think the return is much greater than the risk at this stage that we're at right now for how much money has been put into this asset and how far along we are in the development stage.
Mhm. I think I know the answer to this one, but if you had to summarize really, looking out 6 to 12 months for generation mining in one or two milestones, what would they be? What, would you have investors focus on?
I think the biggest catalyst will be getting the financing and to making this financial investment decision, and that's going to be the number one catalyst. And number two, it's going to be breaking ground, to be up there with the politicians, with the First Nations, with everybody that's been a supporter of this project for a long time. It's going to mean the world to me to break the ground and just have everybody up there, and we're there. It's going to be that aha moment that, hey, we are the next critical metal project getting built in Canada.
Jamie, thanks for joining us. Best of luck, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. All the best.